Let's move on, because here's the thing. We're going to save Team Liquid till later, because I know people have already... Basically, the Team Liquid moves are what people knew months ago, so everyone's privy to that. I want to do the complexity one now, dude, the former extra salt. Because I have to say, I'll save my thoughts for a second, but I'll just preview it like this. I think people are really sleeping on this fucking roster, dude. Like, I feel like either people have only seen these players, some of them when they got the chance and didn't do as well in the bigger tier 1 team, or they don't know how good these players were in NA in past teams. Like, to me, if I know I can't have the players on EG and Team Liquid, this is a banger roster view.
Oh, yeah. This is, I mean, I think a lot of what's happened is that Grim's stock has gone down a lot. I mean, if you see Grim in beginning of 2020, he was pulling off unreal numbers, like just unbelievable carrying before he joined Liquid. And then I guess, you know, once he joined Liquid, things went down, and now his stock is at an all-time low. And I think people forget that he used to be this all-star talent that was kind of ousted from all of his good roles, all kind of his protection that he had in Triumph, into Liquid and kind of thrown into the fire. And then I think, you know, I would guess as well, his confidence has been absolutely blasted being on Liquid, given, especially, I mean, if Stewie's going to come out before an event and say essentially Grim is shit, you can only imagine what's going on behind closed doors.
Put it this way, if you, the stuff you heard, here's what's interesting about Team Liquid, I can tell you from the inside and some of my sources. The things you saw at the very end when the lineup was mega dead and like Fallen and Stewie having their incident, the Grim incident, these were things that already, as I heard, when were going on in the months prior, it's just they didn't leak. So I heard on the Grim topic, by the way, people genuinely were just like essentially sort of flaming this guy in practice and sort of, or even amongst each other, sort of being like, this guy isn't any fucking good. Which, listen, you're going to find out that your teammates think that, for fuck's sake.
Look, if that's what he's saying publicly, think about what's happened on internally, guys. Like, use your brains. Like, imagine how much worse it was, like, behind closed doors, if that's what's getting out to the public in interviews and vlogs and things of that nature. I heard it was pretty bad. That's all I'm going to say.
So anyway, for what we said?
Yeah. I think Grim's, if he came from Triumph, you'd probably be putting him in all of the best roles, and you'd be trying to put him as the carry. Coming from Liquid, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. The biggest question mark I have with this roster is actually Junior, which seems a little bit odd, because if you just look at his stats, he almost seems like he's nearly as good as OC. But then if you look at his actual play, and if you look deeper into his stats, I mean, he really falls off a cliff against top 10, top 5 teams. When teams start to be good, he falls off. And if you watch his gameplay, he misses a lot of shots. He actually misses quite a few. And when he's playing worse teams, they're not going to punish him for that. When he's playing better teams, he misses a shot. He might re-peek into the angle to take the shot again. He's just going to get blasted. Or he's just going to get blasted as soon as he misses the shot in the first place. And he's also got this, I mean, I assume that this can be kind of grilled out of him, but he's also got a tendency to make the same play a lot, like to the point that a good team anti-stratting is going to be able to see that coming and deal with it. So Junior is actually by far the biggest question mark I have on this roster, despite the fact that, I mean, I think most people looking at the roster are going to see Junior as a big plus.
What do you think, Dust?
Yeah, I mean, I think that similar to like Grim stock plummeting whenever he went over to Team Liquid, I think the same thing kind of happened to Junior when he tried to do the whole Furia thing, right? I mean, I think that obviously he got his first taste of like playing against international competition on a team where he was with a bunch of, I mean, that's the wildest one, I think, maybe in CSGO history of like, I know we had like, you know, Stewie and Tarek join together on Made in Brazil, but Junior basically, who had no established, you know, presence inside tier 1 NACS, even all of a sudden shows up to Furia with 4 Brazilians by himself. Like, that must have been wild. So I think his, you know, stock unfortunately plummeted due to that whole situation. Seemed like he came back to like Bad News Bears and was playing pretty good within North America. But like you said, I do think we're going to have to see if he can kind of rise back to those levels that made him attractive when he was on Triumph alongside Grim. At least he'll be familiar getting to play with Grim again as well. So that's always nice. I think the other person you have to point to on this team is actually Fang, because I know that he was a guy that some other teams were actually looking at. Mike, maybe a Liquid or EOGenesis, for example. He's, you know, younger guy, been fragging really, really well with Extra Salt. So it seems like he definitely has some talent to him. I've heard that maybe he still needs to kind of, you know, work on some of the other aspects of like his mental game and attitude and things of that nature. Again, I don't know how accurate that is. It's just what I speculate, that maybe he needs to kind of calm down a bit. But I think that he at least has the talent. And so, yeah, but that and the fact that Floppy comes back from Valorant, and so you're kind of worried, is he going to have it still? What's he going to be thinking? He was the one guy that never really committed all the way to Valorant, though. I feel like of all the transfers that kind of happened, it's like he really did just do it because he had no choice.
He was forced at the time.
Yeah, it did seem like it wasn't like something he really wanted to do, like some of the other guys like really wanted to give it a chance. It seemed like he just kind of did it because it's like, oh, I guess that's what I have to do to still have a career. And so now that he's found an opportunity to come back to Counter-Strike, the game he never wanted to leave, he's been looking like he's hit the ground running pretty well. So, I mean, yeah, this team definitely has a lot of firepower. I actually would have been curious to see how Dats would have done with this team, if I'm just being 100% honest. So that's no shot against JT. I'm just kind of curious, like, how that could have worked out. But JT, in his own credit, has been like a pretty serviceable IGL throughout his career with ATK and Bravado and so on and so forth, the South African stuff. So we'll see. I think that there's definitely some hope for this team for sure. They definitely have, like you said, all the firepower that you could want, outside of EG and Liquid.
Yeah, if people don't know, the other rumour was this is the team Daps goes to, and he just has all these young stud talents. And then, by the way, that would obviously be an incredible prospect. Think of all the players he's brought up over the years. Like, the joke is, in this team, they've got the opposite problem you would expect from a Tier 2 NA team. They have 4 players who are supposed to be the star player if you look at their careers. And the other one's JT and IGL, who's like a fucking execute IGL. So, listen, God bless him. He's got a fucking hard challenge. The upside is this. If he figures it out, this team can be way better, like I said, than the names on paper if you don't know them. But the downside is, I don't know how you figure all these roles out and who's going to fit where, etc. So, that's the tough part. Because if people don't get it, if we're assuming that NA, in terms of the recent performances of teams, generally you would have considered them like top of Tier 2. This is a Tier 2 super team. Literally, every one of these players was a star. Floppy was the star of JT's Cloud9. Grim was the star of Triumph. Junior was also a Triumph as well, right? I think it was Triumph after fucking Grim left was when he kind of had his star period where he was carrying, and then Fang obviously was in the Extra Salt team. He was like the best player there. So to me, if you can get it right, I'm not sure where everyone fits in the mix here, but if you can get it right, the actual firepower could be very underrated on this squad, in my opinion. So I actually listen. I thought JT did a pretty good job when I watched him at Cloud9. His problem is he's another one in the vein of Daps, who's not a very good individual player for IGL. But then again, I'll tell you what, if you stack this much skill, if you make it work, this is the rare example of a team you can probably survive with an IGL like that.
I think the biggest clash is going to be Grim and Fang. Like, I think that, Floppy's always been kind of a guy that can kind of take more passive rifling roles, kind of, put him off by himself into a default and let him kind of be that kind of guy and let him facilitate that way. And I feel like Grim is the kind of guy you want more at the forefront. You want him as like more of your trade fragger, let him be able to flex some of the stuff he did on Triumph. But I also feel like it's kind of like where Fangs plays some of his best Counter-Strike. So that is where I think the biggest rub might be, is like trying to figure out how to balance Grim and Fang to make the roles work on this team. But if they can, like you said, definitely have the skill to make some noise.
Yeah, I think actually looking at their games so far, the rounds where Grim goes first seems to be the rounds where Complexity is having by far their most success. When Grim's going at the back, it seems like things are kind of falling apart at the front. So I'd love to see Grim as like a first or second in, because he's getting, mechanically Grim is insanely talented. And if that means Fang takes a hit, I'd be fine with that.
So I also will add as well, if we're going with the angle that, like, look, this isn't supposed to on paper be a team that's immediately top 10 and all that jazz. It's kind of taken a min-max flyer at the idea of having an NA team, but also be like, a dark horse, be vaguely relevant. It's a pretty well put together squad, I'm going to say. Whoever put this together, they did a pretty good job. And if they indeed had have landed Daps, I would even have said, probably I would have made some bold predictions like they're better than one, maybe EG. I think on paper, if they've had Daps, maybe they would be better than EG. I think the firepower's there for a start. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.